New at midday, the man accused of killing his ex-girlfriend's 2-year-old son last month has pleaded not guilty. Terrell Rhodes showing up to court in person this morning. The district attorney says he will bring the case before the death penalty committee. He says they have a month to let the court know if they will seek the death penalty charge. Last month, as you might remember, Amari was reported missing by his mother. Officers say she left him in the care of Rhodes as she went out of state to care for her mother. A few days later, police found Amari's body near Paradise and Twain. An arrest report says Rhodes killed the boy after he wet himself.
Okay, so some of us know about grand jury proceedings and some of us don't. I know I don't know a lot about them, but from watching all of my favorite shows, I know a little bit about a little bit. But since I'm looking up more details, of course I'm going to share. So let's get it. This is by Christopher Coble. Credit to him. Just a deeper understanding of how this whole grand jury thing is going to go. Okay, what to expect. Today, Terrell pleaded not guilty. And I have my composure now, but I think my mouth literally hit the floor. I was like, oh my God, the nerve and audacity, really. And what is it about? What's going on? Like, what is it that he thinks he knows that could get him off, that would make him say not guilty? That's a whole other bear right there. I'm really intrigued, actually. But back to understanding what's happening. Why he even made a plea, why it's with the grand jury, that whole thing. So, I'm going to read this out loud in case you can't really read it, because I haven't read it and I want to. So, here we go. While a criminal case can go from crime to verdict in 30 minutes on television, in real life, they often take months or years to resolve and have various stages from arrest to trial. For some states, that stage is a grand jury indictment. That would be Nevada being one of them. So how do grand juries work? What does it mean when they return an indictment? And what happens after a grand jury indictment? Grand juries, indictments, and sandwiches. Cute. All right. It says not all states employ grand juries, but for those that do, it is an opportunity for an independent panel of citizens to review the government's evidence against a criminal defendant and decide if it is sufficient to move forward with charges. Grand juries are used in all federal cases with the idea that they are a check on prosecutors filing inappropriate or malicious charges. When a grand jury returns an indictment, it is an official charge that the defendant committed the crime alleged. The indictment also serves as a notice to a defendant of the charges against him or her. Because nearly all grand jury sessions feature the prosecution's evidence exclusively, the vast majority of grand juries return indictments. Okay, so I'm going to touch on that just a little bit. I know that because of the severity of the charges, it's required that they had to take it here to the grand jury step. But I'm also thinking about the list of charges that he has, and everything after murder is involving him and the officers attempting to, tase, or you know what I mean? So all of that part, I think, is where it may be a little more leaning towards his benefit to have the grand jury at least check that out and see what really happened here or there, if they care to dig that deep. Because I've also read that just now because nearly all grand jury sessions feature the prosecution's evidence exclusively, the vast majority of grand juries return indictments. So even though he's kind of going to get that extra little moment where something could come out if he didn't do all that extra stuff, it doesn't look like it's going to work out that way. It's just traditionally grand juries are the prosecutor's friend. So unless he had some really serious information or evidence that made its way into court, I don't see him benefiting from this. But anyway, just my thought. Before we move on to the aftermath of the grand jury indictment, let's pop over to something you can't see, but I'm looking at on my tablet. And it just tells you the typical grand juries include 16 to 20 people. They're selected from the same pool of citizens eligible for jury duty for actual trials. Grand juries operate similarly. Ooh, that word is tricky, huh? Not going to do it again. To trial juries, in that there is a foreperson and that they deliberate in secret. Do defendants testify? They may testify, but it is advised that the defendants do not speak at all, since they are not allowed to have their attorney present at grand juries. The prosecution may also subpoena witnesses in Nevada to testify at the grand jury. Okay, I apologize, you guys. So, I'm going to pop back over now to the aftermath on our screen and finish. We'll start to read that because we haven't, and I haven't read that yet. After a grand jury indictment, a defendant has the opportunity to enter a plea. Today, Terrell entered a not guilty plea. For some reason. A guilty plea could lead to a quick sentencing hearing or the imposition of a prearranged plea bargain with the prosecutors. If a defendant pleads not guilty, the case will move forward to trial. It is still possible, though, to arrange a plea bargain after a guilty plea, and all the way until a verdict is reached at trial. It is important to note that an indictment is not a statement of guilt. It is only a determination that enough evidence exists to move forward with charges. So, again, Terrell Rhodes pled not guilty today. And we just read that if a defendant pleads not guilty, the case will move forward to trial. So, that's where we are. He's already been arrested, so the next section says if a defendant has been arrested. Oh, if he's yet to be arrested. Okay, so we'll skip that and say for defendants already in jail after their arrest and unable to bail themselves out, they could remain there after an indictment to await trial. He has no bail, so he will certainly remain there. Thank God. Or a judge may set the conditions of their pre-trial release. I don't see him coming out of there, especially because it can take time to get these trials going. It may go fast, it may go slow, but I don't see it. So that's all this article says, just giving a little more background to the whole grand jury process. And I personally wanted some more understanding when I heard him with the not guilty plea, like how that works. So now we know. It moves to trial. Okay, beautiful people. Last but not least, let's talk about the big word, death. Ooh, death for Terrell. Same thing that he brought to poor little baby Amari. The state of Nevada wants to give it back to him. The death penalty. They are pushing this through to the death penalty committee. And in Nevada, capital punishment is a legal penalty. Despite remaining a legal penalty, there have been no executions in Nevada since 2006. So they want him. In April 2021, the Nevada Assembly passed a bill to abolish the death penalty in Nevada. However, Governor Steve Sisolak, a Democrat, said he would not sign the bill because he believes some crimes deserve the death penalty. And I agree. According to a poll, 46% of Nevadans support the death penalty, while 49% oppose it. That's a really tight race. The last person executed in the state was convicted murderer Terrell Mack. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. A little bit more about the death penalty here. So the legal process of the death penalty. When the prosecution seeks the death penalty, the sentence is decided by the jury and must be unanimous. In case of a hung jury, during the penalty phase of the trial, the judge has discretion to order a retrial or impose a life sentence. Under the Nevada Constitution, clemency can be granted by the governor of Nevada with advice and consent of a board on which he sits, and also includes justices of the state Supreme Court and state attorney general. Lethal injection is the only method of execution in Nevada. It says that the men's death row is in Nevada at Ely State Prison. It's separate from the women's. And I hope that that is where he ends up. Worst case scenario, it's certainly a life sentence, but lethal injection sounds quite all right to me for this guy. I am sorry. God forgive me if I'm wrong. And I'm not going to debate it in the comments. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, as long as it doesn't get personal, because I delete those. Stick to the content. How can I have empathy? How? But realistically, how can we have empathy for this man? For lack of a better word of what to call him. Rest in peace, Amari. And Terrell Rhodes, you deserve whatever God decides you should get. And I hope God and the jury are on the same page as I am. That's terrible to say. It's true, though.